Thanks for tuning in to the episode of The Aydin Show, sponsored by our friends at Casa Homes. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Aydin Show. Today's guest is a second Dan black belt in BJJ. He's been in it for over 20 years. He has a gym here in Melbourne that most have heard of called Nexus Gracie BJJ. Brother Murat Karadenizli, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Great to have you on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Brother, so look, I guess we want to learn a little bit about you, how you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, yes. How this thing all started for you. So let's go back to when it all began and just run us through how your journey began.
Yeah, absolutely. Like most people, I stumbled upon the DVDs of the early stages of UFC from part 1 to 4, where Royce Gracie was, first putting this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style of fighting out there in the States. I believe it was the early 90s.
He was doing really well back then, yeah.
And I used to do boxing with a friend of mine. Just nothing too serious, but we used to just in his garage and
spar a little bit, and
muck around. And one day I got a call from him saying, you got to check these DVDs out. These, bare knuckle fighting. And I said, what is it? He said, well, you got to come and check it out. So I went over, watched it, and I was watching the preview of the fighters warming up, the intro, and he said, take a guess. Who do you think is going to win the whole tournament? It's limited rules. They get to fight on the ground. I was never exposed to such thing prior to that.
Okay.
And so I never guessed that Royce Gracie would do well. In fact, when I seen him warm up with his uniform on against these, mean looking, athletic looking, strikers, boxers and stuff, I was quite amazed. And I remember the next day checking the yellow pages. This is going back year 99, 2000.
So you got really interested. You saw that these two guys have a fight in the UFC. He was doing really well in Jiu-Jitsu. He was winning a lot of competitions back then. And you decided, okay, I need to get into Jiu-Jitsu. So you were doing boxing before that, and this changed your mind.
Yeah. I mean, he was winning fights in a different way. Not a way that I was used to seeing, like knockouts and striking. So it intrigued me. So I thought to myself, how do you even train jiu-jitsu? Like, what is this all about? So it just sparked my interest. So check the yellow pages, and the option we had back then was in St Kilda with Peter Devine.
Okay.
He was one of the two guys that first initially, introduced, I could say, jiu-jitsu to Australia back then. And I went over there. I remember I thought I'll just pop in and check it out and see if I like it or not. So I was watching from the sidelines, just, guys grappling. In all honesty, sometimes it doesn't look so impressive, when you first watch it, or even that effective, really. So I remember thinking to myself, would this stuff really work on me, So
because you've got guys on top of each other.
Yeah. Never seen it. And I was about to walk out, actually, and a gentleman walked up to me from there and with a big smile on his face, he said, would you like to try it out? Well, I said, maybe next time, And he said, look, watching and trying is two different things. I advise you come and try it. I said, what the hell? All right. If we're going to get our arm broken, we're going to whatever, So I was a bit afraid, I was nervous, but then I just decided to try it out, and thank God I did.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu's done amazing things for me.
Okay.
And I just remember getting my ass spanked. And just covered in sweat, completely exhausted. I remember sitting back against the
So were you
wall.
fighting against a white belt? So it was a white belt that you were challenging yourself with, or?
Yeah, there was some white belts that I trained with that had a years of experience that completely spanked me, and guys that were smaller than me, more experienced too. I rolled with more experienced people too, but I just remember feeling helpless and scratching my head, thinking to myself, I wonder how many people more out there knows this style of fighting.
Yeah.
Because I would have never expected from, just ordinary looking guys too.
Exactly, because you can get in a lot of trouble. So if you were to get out there and you had someone that knew Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they can do a lot of things here. They can.
It might be the wrong guy to pick on.
Exactly, you can't tell anymore, man. Like skinny,
not.
you know. Like I guess the reason why I suggest a lot of kids that are getting bullied, the kids that are getting called nerds, that are getting picked on, should do this sport. It kind of mixes up with them well. You don't really need to be big. You don't really need to be physical. If anything, you need to be pretty smart, don't you? You've got to be switched on, like to kind of understand the moves and know how to progress in it. What do you reckon? So if you had someone that came with a background that gets bullied a lot, skinny guy, switched on, how would you help him out?
I think Jiu-Jitsu just does all of that by default. The nature of the style. Jiu-Jitsu is the meaning of the word Jiu-Jitsu is the gentle art. It gives the weaker, less stronger person an opportunity to defend themselves from really bad situations. Like, for example, Jiu-Jitsu is the only style that can offer you an option to defend yourself from your back. Yeah. So if you were to, and being a smaller person like Helio, I suspect you're probably going to mention him.
Yeah, we're going to run through a little bit of history of Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Like himself, he had no option but to defend himself from his back. So he really kind of sharpened these skills there, learned the skills to use his legs and arms as a shield to, first of all, survive and protect himself. And sometimes it comes down to asking yourself not what you can do to the person across you, but what can they do to you? It's a little shift in the mindset, but if you train jiu-jitsu, you train from worst case scenarios, and it's pretty damn close to a real fight. So every time you're in training and you're as we say, rolling, it's pretty close to a real fight. So if you did end up getting into a fight, your body's used to it, your mind's used to that kind of intensity. Yeah. And you recognize those positions. So you say, okay, I've been defending myself from really bad positions doing jiu-jitsu for, say, for example, 1 year, 5 years, but I wonder, what if I put this guy in those positions? Does he have the answers? And more than likely, most people don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. Look, I want to dive down to the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so some of our viewers can understand where it comes from, how it all began, all the rest of that sort of stuff. There's a guy that a lot of people haven't heard of. Like, when you hear Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know that the Gracies are very well, behind that. Yep. But there is a man by the name of Mitsuyo Maeda. And this guy, they call him the father of Jiu-Jitsu for a reason. When he was young, though, so he's got a bit of a story. So when he was young, he wanted to be a sumo wrestler. In Japan. His background's Japanese. And he quickly found out that being 170 centimeters tall and about 60 kilos in weight, you can't really be a sumo, man. Yes. You've got to be a lot taller and a lot fatter than that. So he realized, okay, I'm not going to do well in this. What else can I do? So he got himself into judo. Yep. He quickly, grew in the ranks. Yes. So from white belt, he went, obviously did his belts. He, on his day when he was about to get his black belt handed to him, so he was about 20 years old, he was about to get his black belt. He said the way they did training back then, you had to fight 15 of your peers that have black belts, and depending on how you go with them, you get handed your black belt. Okay. And so Maeda challenged these guys one by one, and he smashed every single one of them.
Check that out.
15 guys, man, one after another. I'm like, wow. And they're your peers. They're guys that you looked up to, that you obviously wanted to be like. Yes. You want the black belt just like they've got it on them. Yep. So he started traveling after that. He went around the world a little bit, and then he got into Brazil, and he needed to make some money, obviously. And he stumbled across someone that, owned a circus, I think. And he, I guess, started giving him some fighters to fight up against. Right. So these really big blokes, really pumped, strong physically, and he had a fight on with one of them. Now, while that was all happening, he had his son Carlos Gracie that was playing up in school. He got expelled again. He was a hothead. So one of those guys where if you look at him, he just wants to go
Trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Troublemaker.
Yes.
So his dad took him out of school and said, "Look, I'm going to take you to watch a fight.
Yep.
You know, come with me. It's at our circus. Rah, this time, make sure you be there." So he goes there and he sees Mater annihilate this massive, massive man within about 30 seconds. And it gets Carlos's, you know, he's like,
Attention.
whoa, yeah, definitely. Like, he's like, whoa, man, this guy just smashed someone much bigger. I want to know how he did that.
Yep.
So he goes up to him, starts talking to him, and they become friends, and he becomes his instructor. And I guess the journey from there begins. You see, Mater also had about 2,000 professional fights.
Wow.
And he hasn't lost any of them. So when we look into his history, 2,000 professional fights and no losses is quite huge. He was regarded as the most strongest man in the world. Me and you recently were talking about how they should have a movie about him. And I've
and then you sent me the link on Netflix, I think.
It's coming out, man. So there's something called Dead or Alive that'll be out, I think, in a couple of months to the end of the year. That's going to be really cool to watch. So yeah, look, I guess Carlos then starts training. I think they started training in the garage. His brother Helio was there training with him. I think you know a little bit more than I do about Helio, the younger brother.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on it?
Yeah. So, absolutely. So from what I know, asking Pedro and reading articles about Helio and how we got started, you know, he would be a light guy, you know, in his 60 kilos or so, and apparently he had some kind of like illness where he'll faint. So physical exercise didn't go so well for Helio. So he had watched his brother teach classes for about 4 years. And one day his brother couldn't turn up to class. And, he put his hand up saying, I know what he's going to teach. So let me take charge and just let's get this class rolling. So
like any brother would, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've been watching him on the sidelines all this time. Now it's my turn, mate. You know, I want to step it up a little bit. So good on him. Yeah,
good. And he was like a scientist. You know, scientist of jiu-jitsu. You know, let's not forget he had analyzed for 4 years. You know, every session. You know, like critically analyzing. So prior to that, so he had a lot of things in his mind about jiu-jitsu. And when he started teaching the techniques that his brother that had weighed 20 or 30 kilos heavier than him teach those same techniques, he realized that it didn't work so well for him in the sense that the people that he was teaching was stronger than him. So they'll just unless they'll hold him by the collars and just put him on his back, and he would have to just start the fight from that position onwards. Without any choice because of his size difference. So he didn't invent jiu-jitsu as such, but he contributed massively, especially in the area of what we call the guard. Yep. Like those worst case scenarios that we're talking about, like, you know, defending yourself from your back. If you found yourself there, of course, in a real fight, that's the last place you want to end up in. You don't want to be on the ground too much in a real fight. Yeah. But we say, you know, like what if you did end up? What if you had no option? You slipped, or someone stronger than you, they just, you know, end up on top. He developed those skills. So,
yeah, because when you look at him, when you look at Helio, especially when he started becoming, starting getting into the tournaments, he was always up against those 30, 40 kilo guys that were much bigger than him, and he was locking them up in 40. Like the fight was over in 40 seconds, man. Yep. So yeah, he had a massive part, I guess, in jiu-jitsu. And his son also, Royce Gracie, the UFC Hall of Famer that we were talking about, in the 90s. You know that, So
and Gracie.
Yeah, exactly. And so you told me I guess you went to St Kilda. You went there. Did you stay there long? Like, was that your gym?
Yes, I trained there full time for about 4 years. You know, so some days I'll go there, train 2 times a day. Leave in the morning, come back at night with 2 different gis that were kind of soaked in sweat coming back home. So I was obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and
So it
That's
kind
how
of
it all
does that to
started.
you, doesn't it? Once you start, you can't stop.
It's kind of like that, you know. It's a whole new world that opens up to you, you know. Just like it was beyond the hobby. Let's put it that way. So then I, you know, got mats in my garage, and I dragged anyone I can on the mats just to save the traveling time to St Kilda. And you know, back then not many people knew what jiu-jitsu was, so they'll, you know, make fun of me saying, "Oh, you just want to hug me," you know, like what the hell is this stuff? And I started with close friends that just completely repelled them, you know, talking about jiu-jitsu 24/7. But after a while, when it becomes your lifestyle, you kind of stop annoying the people around you. It just becomes part of you. You know, that's how it is now. I don't really talk about jiu-jitsu much unless someone asks me. It's just me now, you know. But those first few months of starting jiu-jitsu, I see it all the time with my students. They do the same thing that I did to my family and friends, you know, just drain the life out of them. But yeah.
So in my case, I'll be doing the same thing. Yeah, just grabbing my cousins and everyone that's young and just test.
You probably go through that phase. You know?
That's awesome.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. You did a bit of traveling as well. You went overseas. You went.
I did.
You went to America. Did you go anywhere else, or was it just
to Brazil, to Cyprus, bit of Europe. So yeah.
Tell us what that was like. So when you went to America, I mean, you're in the gym. And then what do you say to yourself? I need to get out of here. I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I wanted to explore. I wanted to meet the pioneers, you know, of the art. And so I had a list of a few people I wanted to visit before I decided to go to America.
Who were they?
So the first one was Pedro Sauer. And I can't remember. There was a few other people on the list. But I just remember going to Pedro first. And it was turned out to be the right choice, thank God. And all his black belts there, they were like, how the hell did you find Pedro, you know, all the way from Australia? You came to the right place, by the way. So, and when I first met him, he was just a lovely guy, alongside his phenomenal knowledge of jiu-jitsu, like 45 years on the mat. He's a, you know, direct black belt under Helio, and just a lifetime dedication of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because he was voted the best BJJ instructor.
Yep.
So by my understanding, he helps law enforcement people,
Navy SEALs, and
the army. You know, he's really heavily involved in that.
Yep.
And also he's a eighth Dan.
Yes,
I had a look, and there's only 15 people like him in the world. Is that true?
That's correct.
Wow.
Yep.
And there's only about 20, I think, in the ninth Dan. So he's really up there. So you met him. How did he influence you? How did he I guess, yeah.
Well, I had a lot of training hours on the mat, you know, and I think how he really helped me is he showed me the technical side of jiu-jitsu, really exposed me to, you know, training the right way, you know, like not just using muscle and just brute force, you know. He explained to me that if you keep training like that you won't last on the mats. You'll be forced to leave the mats, and what a shame it would be to, you know, miss out on jiu-jitsu in that case. And I thought, oh yeah, I don't want to miss out on jiu-jitsu. So well, then fix the way you train, you know, and try to emphasize on technique, you know, timing. Just it's a whole lifestyle. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is a whole lifestyle. Like you, for example, if you start taking training serious, you'd want to train more. So when you like to train more, you obviously need to fix your diet.
Yeah.
Okay. So because you need to feel light, and you can't have a, you know, big meal and go train on the mats for 2 hours straight. It's just not going to happen. So it's a lifestyle, meaning it'll fix your diet. It'll get you around the right people, you know, because if you have people on the mats, you know, say 3 or 5 times a week, that's a person that has his life in order.
Yep.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to show up so frequently to training. So being around these people, you meet incredible people. You know, I've met amazing people through jiu-jitsu.
I guess going back to the diet, Carlos Gracie, he kind of moved away from Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a little while to focus on that.
Yes.
To focus on how to find a really good diet. I think he even wrote a book about it. And yeah, he in there, obviously, you know, some of the major things that you can't have while you're in training is drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes. I mean, even back in a time where doctors were saying, you know, I smoke Camel, and they were putting advertisements on, you know, like it was a good thing to do back then. He was against smoking, and he also was against a bit of meat, especially pork. He
apparently so.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. So, I guess diet is very important, man. I mean, you do want to be light in the mornings, you know, have something small to eat and go for a bit of a run. How is your daily routine? So tell us from like when you wake up, what time you wake up, and what do you do from the morning to the night?
Yeah, so I mean, diet-wise, like I like to stay light, you know, so like load up on fluids, a lot of water. I love my coffee, you know. I live in Coburg, so there's plenty pockets there.
Well, one of the favourite ones that you met up Wild Timor.
Yes,
and
amazing.
You're just having one of the coffees from well, that's their coffee bean.
Right.
So nice. The reason why I love Wild Timor coffee, man, organic, wild. Yes. I love stories. So I was listening in on a story about how they get their beans. They get it from East Timor. Every year the villagers go up on a mountain and they pick it seasonally. Wow. So, and they bring it back down, and you can smell it and taste it. That's why,
they've got a bit of a story behind it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm hooked to their coffee. I can't stop drinking it.
Yes, it's an interesting place. I see the photos on the wall when I walk in there. I know about it too. I didn't really read up much on it, but
I think they had a couple of soldiers that went up there. It's Australian soldiers, and they went there to protect them, the villagers and stuff, and they stumbled across all this coffee. And they said, what should we do with it? You know, how can we help the community out?
Wow.
And they decided to open up a coffee shop. So I think there's about 4 or 5 partners that are involved in that. They make really good, exactly. You know, the stories
it's
there.
Good cause.
Exactly. But so you have a lot of fluid in the morning. What time do you get up?
It changes. Sometimes I try to get up 5 a.m. You know, but sometimes I sleep in 7, 8 a.m. And I have 3 young, you know, kids. They're all under 3.5 years of age. So you can imagine you have children yourself. So they keep me quite busy. I love spending time with them, and because of the nature of what I do, teaching classes more so at nighttime, I have the day for myself. So I get to spend a lot of time with my family. So
that's awesome.
Which means,
because I've got 3 kids under 5.
Yeah.
You having them under 3.5, mate, that's challenging.
Yes.
You know, so what my son's now going to school, my little one's at home, she's 3, and we've got a little baby that's about 6 months old. And I've taken some time off as well after the 3rd one came around. Yeah. Just to spend time with them in the mornings. You know, I'm back at work now, but
it's challenging.
Oh, it is.
But rewarding at the same time, huh?
Nothing like kids, man.
Nothing like it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel blessed, you know, like I feel blessed, and I try to wake up early so I can have a bit of time for myself, first of all, get my mind right, get my mind in the right mindset, get ready for the day. And that's how I usually start, you know, my day.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so I guess, look, in terms of when you start jiu-jitsu, I know from white belt to blue belt, it takes a certain amount of time. How long does it take roughly?
Depends on the individual and how much hours they put into it. But
so if they were, let's say they were going to your gym twice a week. Yeah. You know, they've got a busy lifestyle, like you said, young kids, someone like myself. Because I'm interested, and I'm hopefully going to start at your gym.
Yes, I'm going to hold you to that.
that's a goal I've had. So let's work it out with you now. Yep. If I wanted to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu white belt, and I wanted to get a blue belt, which is my goal, how long would it take me?
Yeah, well, I can help you with that. So that's a good start. I think anywhere between a year and a half of training, 2 times a week. 2 times.
So we could do it in a year?
I think we can negotiate something like that.
All right, I'm going to hold you for that. All right, excellent. Look, so so you got your white, your blue. Now, when do you start competing? Like yourself, when did you start competing? Like, was it after a certain, color?
I started competing a few months into my training, maybe even sooner. It was a big competition team. So the culture was all about competition. And so a few weeks into my training, I started competing. and I was fortunate enough to win my first fight. I remember that, but then I remember losing some too. So I did well in competition, especially as a brown belt. I won like most of the major competitions around here, the Asia Pacific, and I was doing really well, and I wanted to take it really serious. And then around 2011, when I traveled overseas and actually to Brazil, I spent about a month with Pedro, really picking his brain and hanging out with him, and he made me see jiu-jitsu in a slightly different way, and that it's not just about competition, and it's about the it's not a requirement to compete and be this tough guy. So he kind of changed my perspective a little bit. So then I cut down on competing so much, and eventually just drifted off the competition scene. The last time I competed was, I think, in 2010.
2010. Because you're how old now?
I'm 38.
38 years old.
Yep.
Okay. We're getting old, man.
Yeah. That's how it is.
Exactly. Once the 30s
Let's
kick in.
age gracefully.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you got out of the competition scene, and then you decided it's time I open up a gym.
Yeah, well, teaching was always a part of what I did, because we didn't have as many options back then. To get a good training in, I had to travel to St Kilda from Broadmeadows.
Okay.
So I had mats in my garage. Like I said, I'll just drag anyone I can get a hold of to get a training session in, so I can avoid the traveling, especially in peak hour.
Definitely.
Yeah. I remember times being on the road for 2 hours.
Melbourne's peak hour can get tough.
Yeah.
I drove trucks for a while, and I know, man. Yeah.
You know how it is.
The West Gate. I don't want to go
there.
Yeah,
don't go there. Yeah, crazy. It's worse now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's worse now. So I was teaching in my garage. I didn't have it in mind to open an academy and do this as a full-time job. I just wanted to get some extra training in. So teaching was always there for me from the very beginning, just the circumstances. Because of the circumstances. But then what I did was started teaching in gyms, hiring out the sports hall section most gyms have, like where they do all the cardio stuff.
Yep.
So I would lay the mats there, take them off in the class. I did that for a while. Then I got my it was a small place in Coburg, off Bell Street.
Sorry, what belt were you when you started doing that?
I was a blue belt.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And I hired this place upstairs on Waterfield Street, just off Bell Street. And, the walls were from not even plaster. They were like partitions. I'm still surprised to this day how they didn't kick us out of there. Next door neighbor was like an accountant. There was it wasn't even, the building wasn't even designed for training, and we used to just knock those walls down. I remember one time running into a wall and hearing all the guys' certificates falling and just the glass shattering, and I thought, for sure we're going to get kicked out this time, but no one said anything. Thank God. They liked us.
Maybe they were scared of you.
Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, we were just welcomed there in the building. So we kept that up for a few years and really got some grueling training in a small place like that. Those guys that used to train with me back then know really well. It was a good experience.
Now you've moved to Coburg North. I've visited you there.
Yes.
You've got this amazing place, man. It's huge.
Yeah.
Even your graffiti, you look like you're going into a comic store. It's just, just mesmerised by the way these guys have done the graffiti on the walls and, plenty of room. How's that all going for you now?
It's going fantastic. We have the space now to expand even more and add on more classes. It's just phenomenal.
So what age groups do you have?
So we have kids starting from 4 years of age to 12, and then we have all kinds of ages, man. Like we have people well into their 50s that are on the mat training. Some guys are there, young guys are there for competition, so they like to train hard. some are there just to learn some self-defense, move around, sweat, socialize, It's a great bunch of guys.
Who's in competition with you now at the gym? So who goes to competition?
There's not many these days because our culture's slightly changed to more just practicing the art, because ever since, everybody kind of follows the instructor's path, so it's been almost 10 years since I haven't competed. So I don't really like lead the way as a competitor. So we don't really produce that many competitors at this stage.
It's more about self-defense and,
just get good at jiu-jitsu, we have some really good, talented guys on the mat that can keep up with.
Because you've got one that we all know in the north here, Murat Karadenizli.
He's one for sure.
Yeah, he's one. I think he's been in competition. 2018, I think he double gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, he's the number 1 ranked black belt. So
in Australia.
In Australia.
There you go. Yeah, and he's out of your gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. I guess so. Let's get back to bullying. I think that's very important.
Sure.
So if we had someone come into your gym, vulnerable, low self-esteem, no confidence, how do you change that person?
Yeah. It just happens by default. I just teach them jiu-jitsu, and obviously if they've had an episode at school or something, I'll kind of try to give them specific advice. But most of the time, if they turn up to class and practice jiu-jitsu, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, if a child takes jiu-jitsu serious and they practice jiu-jitsu, they won't get bullied. It just won't happen.
True.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, because I remember, look, when I was much younger at school, I had issues as well. I was a big boy, man. I was big, strong, It's just, I think the guys around me knew that I had no skills and no confidence, no self-esteem.
Yep.
So they used to pick on that a little bit. It only took one of my friends that eventually started going to the same school as me to tell me, Ahmed, what are you doing? You're a big bloke. The guys that are doing this to you, they're half your
size.
Yeah. So he started wrestling with me. Turkish wrestling,
yes.
Not the oily one.
Yeah. Good to know. Right. Stick your whole arm.
Yeah,
I was watching a bit of that. It was so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just more whoever gets, who on the back. He was into his WWE.
Yes.
He would watch a lot of that. And so I'll put him on his back. He'll hit me on mine. That kind of gave me confidence, man. So the next time one of those boys threw something at me, it was like I had to do it. I had to go up there face to face, tell him not to do it again. And he was surprised, because now he looked like a bloke that's, smaller than me, and I put him in his place. But again, it doesn't matter how big you are or small you are, as long as you've got something like this which teaches you techniques and you use it all in the right way, for self-defense, it'll definitely help you out.
100%. You just, a child that trains jiu-jitsu will not get bullied.
Yeah.
Or any martial art, really, when you think about it. Most of the traditional martial arts or, self-defense system, even boxing or kickboxing is quite effective.
Yeah.
So we do encourage, parents to really bring their kids in. We say martial arts should be a base for any activity. I hear parents say, for example, they'll bring one child in, and then I'll kind of see that the child has a sibling and say, what about him or her? So he's playing footy or he's doing soccer. Yeah. My answer to that is, doesn't matter. Martial arts should be a base for any activity. Just because they're doing football doesn't mean that they shouldn't train martial arts.
That's true. And I've got a 5-year-old, so he goes to Jiu-Jitsu. A little bit closer to us, we've got, Murat Karadenizli here in Roxburgh Park.
Yep.
And he's been training there for a while, and he had an encounter at school. So he came up to me. It was after school. The bell rang, and they built a new playground at the back of the school. And he's like, let's go play there a little bit. So I was playing with him a bit. And then it started getting really busy. I'm like, okay, Daddy, I'm just waiting out here. You keep playing. So he kept playing, and I think about a couple of minutes goes past. He comes up to me saying, I've got someone that's calling me a ASS. I don't want to spell it out, but you know, he's like, he keeps calling me that. He's like, I'm like, how does that make you feel? He's like, I don't like it. I'm like, well, try to go up to him and tell him, you know, not to say it again. So I'm watching him. He's going back. He's playing around. A couple of minutes goes past. I'm like, okay, he's fine. You know, I think that whole thing's finished. Yeah. I put my head down to do a bit of a Google search because the environment he's in is obviously safe. Yeah. I lift my head up. About 40 seconds later, he's up at the top of the playground and he's throwing punches at this kid. And I'm like, I'll let this go for a little bit just because he might stop. But no, it started getting worse. Oh. The other kid started throwing punches in his face. Martik's throwing punches in, so it got really hectic, and I had to get in there and break it off. And I'm looking at the kid that he's fighting with. He's about 2 years older than him, so he looks like he's 7. Martik's 5, you know. And I asked him, like, what grade are you? And he's like, I'm in grade 2. I'm like, well, you're fighting a prep. He's like, you know, I'm sorry, rah rah. I grabbed my son out of there. I'm like, you know, what happened? He's like, he kept calling me that. I told him not to call me that, and you know. We started to fight, you know, and I was thinking to myself, is it right? Is it wrong? Like what he's done? Like I didn't know exactly how to really think that.
Yeah, approach that situation.
But I thought what he did was good. I was proud of him. Like it was one of the best moments I've had in my life to see that my son could be okay out on the street. So
yeah, for sure. That's good. He took initiative and confront the bully, as we say, you know. So shying away from it is not going to help. You have to address the problem somehow. First, you begin with your verbal, you know, warning. And if they don't get that, then it can turn physical. Absolutely. The thing about jiu-jitsu is you can control the damage that you inflict on somebody across you. So meaning that you don't necessarily need to throw a punch. You can put them in a position where they can't move, and guess what? You can negotiate from that position. Definitely. You can hold them down, you know, where you're in a position they can't hit you, but you can hit them, or even break their arm or choke them, and you can say, you know, listen, dude, I'm gonna let you go if you stop being, you know, doing whatever you're doing. Yep. Or I can punch you in the face right now, or break your arm. Which one do you want?
And definitely, like I was thinking that as well. I'm like, instead of him throwing punches, you don't want that at school. You know, you don't want them to throw punches at each other. Jiu-jitsu is that, so he can, you know, if he's only 5, but eventually when he starts learning those moves, he can get into control better, and put him in that place and tell him, hey, look, you don't want to get expelled. I don't want to get expelled. Don't do this again. It's going to get, you know, ugly. So yeah, definitely.
Truth is, for a school student, you get into a fight, whether you're defending yourself or you're the bully or being the person bullied, you're both going to get in trouble in school, primary school or high school. So what I advise for the kids to do is to actually report to the teachers, so they have a track record of the person's behavior. You know, if you're getting bullied in any way, you know, verbal or physical, just make sure the first thing you do is you let your teacher know. So that one day later on, if you had to defend yourself physically and it became a physical altercation, you can always go back to the teacher and say, hey, do you remember I've been reporting this kind of behavior up until now, going back a few weeks. Yeah. So now it's gotten to this. So that way you have a point.
It kind of gets you off the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I know by going to school, the schooling system I believe is outdated. I believe, you know, it needs to be changed, especially in physical ed. One of the schools that are actually ramping it up now is King Khalid. You know, they've got you to come to their school, you know, teach some of the boys a bit of a lesson about jiu-jitsu. They even want to get it incorporated in their physical education classes. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So who came to you from King Khalid to
So Bilal Assad, I know him from years ago. So I approached him. I called him up and I said, you know, like we would like to teach jiu-jitsu to the youth, and what better place to go than the school, you know. And I had no idea he was actually working at King Khalid. So someone told me that he works there. does some work there as a teacher, or I'm not sure what his role is. But so when I found that out, I give him a call.
I think he does Islamic studies.
Right.
I think, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I approached him, and he was generous enough to give us a opportunity to share the knowledge with the kids there, more so the older kids.
So what, year 7 or older?
I think it was year 10.
Okay.
10, 11. They look like ages between 16, 17. Yeah. Yep. And we did a short class there with those kids, and I think it worked well. And we plan to do more activities for the whole school, and we like to talk to them further.
Definitely. Well, I mean, you being in that school and showing them what jiu-jitsu is, I'm sure a lot of children would have, caught attention, especially around that age group.
Yeah.
They would now want to be more involved in this sport. So yeah, it is good awareness to get out into schools and stuff like that. Look, if some of these guys did join, what are they looking in terms of costs? So, buying a gi, I think is something that they need, the belt. Yep. What are we looking at? So
it's pretty affordable. I mean, just like any activity, we understand that it can get costly, especially if the child wants to do a few activities, So you'll have something like a starter pack where it covers you for your uniform, insurance, and your first month of membership. So you'll start off like that, and then we have fortnightly memberships depending on how often you train. And some people can only come in 3 days a week. Some just go full all out doing 6 days a week. So it depends on the individual.
And then how often do they get graded? So from white belt to what's the next one up?
So from white, it's 5 belts to black belt. You start from your white belt. You have 4 stripes, then blue, 4 stripes, purple, 4 stripes, brown, again 4 stripes, then black belt.
Okay.
And so your first 20 hours, 20 sessions will earn you a white belt, 1 stripe. Okay. And 40 hours after that, you'll get your second stripe. Then 60 just keeps going up. As you get more and more experience, the hours required gets higher.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So we have a white belt with a black bar on it, black section, like 10% of it. So when I put a white belt on someone that's new, I always make the joke. I say, so you see, you're a 10% black belt. So little part of it that's a black belt is designed to put the stripes on.
Okay.
So they can see the stripes. So you'll get 4 stripes, and then you qualify to test for your first coloured belt.
Now, with the test to the coloured belt, is there any particular time where you need to verse someone or have it like a little bit of a competition against someone to get graded? Yeah. Does it happen early on, or is that later on when you get your brown belt or your black belt? Or
yeah, I think it depends on the school, depends on the academy, their network. In our association, it's not required to compete. It is a requirement to know the curriculum to be able to demonstrate certain techniques. Yeah. So, but I know that some other associations also require, people to compete. So if you don't compete, you don't get graded. So,
okay.
Yeah, that one can be a bit challenging for older people.
Yeah. But I saw when you were getting graded, so you're in your black belt, and I think you were getting your black belt or your second Dan, and you were taking on Pedro.
Yes.
Man, I think that's on YouTube.
Yeah, it is on YouTube, yes.
Yeah, and it goes for a while. It goes for a good 5 minutes. Would
have been.
Yeah, yeah. So is that something that you do with him?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It's
getting harder now as he's getting older, because he's got he's got so many injuries. Yep. So as he gets older, he really picks and chooses who he trains with. He has to really trust the person across him. So, but it's unbelievable. Just training with him for 5 minutes can teach you so much, And but I learn more off Pedro off the mats than on the mats anyway. So I'm just fortunate enough to have such a mentor, such a great person to be around and had the opportunity to be around.
Yeah, and your third Dan is coming up.
Correct.
In a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be here to do that?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. Congratulations
Thank
with
you.
all that, brother.
I appreciate it.
I guess, look, just before we end this podcast, we do have a fight coming up. So Habib versus Ferguson.
Yes. I'm excited.
You're excited. I'm excited as well. Who do you want to win?
I mean, look, straight off the bat, obviously, I want Khabib to win, you know, so I'm all the way Khabib. It's a tough fight for him. I think Tony Ferguson is well-versed, especially with his, jiu-jitsu skills and the ability to be able to play from his back.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a challenging one for him, but I think Khabib will pull this one off too. It's going to be the same result.
I think so. I think, look, it's going to be the most hardest fight. I'm predicting that Habib's come against.
Yes.
Because most of the other guys are more striking.
Correct. Yes.
It's more similar to him. You've got a judo black belt versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Yeah.
It's
Tony can really scramble, you know, and he's got some nasty chokes, long arms, long limbs, you know, so you just never know with a guy like that.
Now, you're going to broadcast it at your gym?
Possibly.
Possibly?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do sometimes. We watch it at academy. But for the Khabib fight, I'll probably watch it at home.
It'll be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Just relax, you know, not worry about, who's going to order the pizza, serve the drinks, because there's a bit of hosting going on when you do it at the academy.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. What's your favorite move in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, I get this asked all the time. You know, my favorite move in Jiu-Jitsu would be the move that I get the easiest.
Okay.
All right. So that's what I'm drawn to. So, you know, if I were to try and arm lock you, for instance, and I had to put a lot of muscle into it, that doesn't appeal to me as much these days. You know, maybe at the very beginning when you first start, you just want to get a submission.
So just arm lock.
Man, you could use brute force. You could use everything you have. You know, as long as you get that tap out, you're going to feel good about yourself, you know. But after a while, you start perfecting your technique. You're not so content with just getting the submission. It's how you get it. You know, if you've done a smooth transition into a submission using no effort, minimum effort, that just feels great. You know, so that's my favorite move. Anything that I pull off in a well-timed manner, I love.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Murat, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
For all our guests out there that want to get involved in Jiu-Jitsu, Murat has Nexus was it Gaffney Street?
Bakers Road in Coburg North.
Bakers Road in Coburg North. Nexus Gracie BJJ.
Yep.
Type it up in Google and you'll find his number. I wish everyone a great day.
Yes, and I'm expecting you in class.
I'm definitely coming.
We're going to pin a day today, so
done. After this show,
open up your calendar.
Done. After the show, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to bring out the diary and we're going to work it all out.
That's it.
Not a problem. See ya.
Good on you.
See you guys.
Thank you.